All right, welcome everyone. Get ready, because what we're about to explore in this explainer might just completely rewire how you see, well, everything. Yourself, your body, your mind, even your place in the universe. We're really going to challenge some of the most basic assumptions we have about reality itself. So let's just start with the big one, the central question for our entire discussion today. For centuries, science has kind of taught us to see ourselves as these incredibly complex biological machines. But is that the whole story? Are you really just a collection of parts, a fancy clockwork of chemical reactions? Or is there something much, much deeper going on? To really dig into that question, we have to understand two totally opposing worldviews. On one hand, you've got the classical machine view. This says you're a collection of separate parts and that your consciousness is just sort of a side effect of your brain firing away. But on the other hand, there's the quantum field view. This one proposes something radically different, that you're a unified field, that consciousness isn't a byproduct, it's the foundation of reality, and that the universe isn't made of things, it's made of relationships between things. Okay, so let's start with the model that has dominated our thinking for hundreds of years. It's powerful, it's predictable, no doubt about it. But as we're about to see, it's also dangerously incomplete. This is what we can call the machine model myth. So how did this machine model get so popular in the first place? Well, it started way back with Newtonian physics, which gave us this idea of a perfect clockwork universe. Then Darwinian evolution came along and framed life as this constant competition between separate individuals. Fast forward to the 20th century, and neuroscience basically concluded that the mind is simply what the brain does. And you can see the appeal, right? It promises certainty. It promises control. If you can break everything down into its little parts, you can measure it, you can predict it, and you can control it. But here is the fundamental, massive flaw. For more than a century, science had a simple rule. If you can't measure it, it doesn't really exist. Now, that method is incredibly powerful, but it can only ever describe the visible, measurable half of reality. It completely, utterly misses the single most important part of our existence, our inner world, our subjective experience, our feelings, our thoughts, our awareness. Now, this is where the story takes a wild turn. Because, ironically, it was physics itself, the hardest of the hard sciences, that began to uncover a much deeper, much more interconnected reality than that old classical model could ever explain. You see, the classical view imagined the universe was built from these tiny, separate, solid objects, kind of like microscopic marbles or billiard balls bouncing around in empty space. In this view, everything is fundamentally separate, and you can understand it by just taking it apart and looking at the pieces. But then quantum physics came along and just shattered that whole picture. It revealed that particles aren't separate things at all. Instead, they are states of a field. They're like temporary ripples in a much deeper, unified ocean of energy. Think about it, you can't separate a wave from the ocean, right? Well, in the same way, you can't separate a particle from the quantum field it comes from. And this brings us to a really crucial idea called holism. It's the concept that the deeper reality isn't made of separable parts. A whole system can't be understood just by analyzing its pieces in isolation. In this quantum view, the idea of you being some self-contained machine was never really true to begin with. We are all fundamentally interconnected. So if we aren't just machines, what does that say about our consciousness, our ability to feel joy or sadness, or to find meaning in a song or a sunset? This is where the machine model truly, completely breaks down. It's a problem that even the most advanced AI you can imagine can't solve. To get this, let's compare two types of information. On one side, you have classical information, the language of our computers. It's made of bits, zeros, and ones. It's public. It can be copied a million times perfectly, but, and this is key, it has no inherent meaning. A zero is just a zero. Quantum information, on the other hand, is profoundly different. There's something called the no-cloning theorem in physics that proves it cannot be perfectly copied. It's private. It's unique. It exists in a state of potential until it's observed. You know, it behaves a lot more like our own private inner experience. The inventor of the microprocessor, Federico Faggin, put it perfectly. He said, even if AI gives you a good idea, AI doesn't know that it is a good idea. You recognize the good idea with your understanding. The AI is just processing symbols. You are the one who experiences meaning. That recognition, that's an act of pure consciousness. This leads us to a pretty radical idea that flips the whole thing on its head. What if the brain doesn't create consciousness at all? What if, instead, it acts more like a complex radio receiver or maybe a translator,
tuning into a field of consciousness that's already fundamental to the universe itself.
Okay, I know this is abstract stuff. So to make this idea a bit more solid, let's use a really powerful analogy. This one really helps clarify the relationship between your consciousness and your physical body. So imagine your consciousness, the real you, is an operator sitting safely in a control room. Your body, that's a highly advanced drone out exploring the physical world. And your senses, sight, sound, touch, that's just the data feed coming back from the drone. The thing is, you get so focused, so immersed in piloting the drone that you completely forget you're actually in the control room. So in this model, death isn't the end. It's just the drone going offline. The operator, your consciousness, remains.
And this isn't just a cool thought experiment. This model actually offers a way to understand the thousands of documented near-death experiences. We have reports from people who were clinically dead, zero measurable brain activity, who reported being fully aware, lucid, observing their surroundings from outside their physical body. Now, if the brain, the supposed producer of consciousness, isn't working, where is that awareness coming from?
So what we're talking about is a profound shift in how we understand ourselves and our reality. And the most important question is, so what? What does this mean for our day-to-day lives? How can we actually apply these holistic ideas? Well, first, it means actively looking for connection instead of separation. When you really get that fragmentation is just an illusion, cooperation suddenly feels a lot more natural than competition. It also means recognizing that you are a creator of meaning, not just a passive consumer of it. And finally, it means learning to trust your inner experience, your intuition, your gut feelings. They aren't just random chemical noise. They could be a direct link to that deeper holistic reality. So let's end with this one final empowering thought. We've built entire civilizations on the idea that we are just passive observers in a cold, meaningless universe. But what if that core assumption is just plain wrong? What if the universe doesn't simply contain meaning for you to find, but that you, your consciousness, are the very source of it? This shift in perspective leaves us with the ultimate question. What meaning will you choose to create?